I had to.
Okay, let's try this again. Well,
Ooh.
welcome to the AM Club podcast. This is episode number
20.
alrighty, and we have a great topic for you all today. Jose, it mainly came from him. Well, not mainly, that did come from him. I have no clue how to fucking explain this shit or break it down, but you better fucking believe that once he explains it more, I'm gonna have some sweet shit to say following that shit up.
Listen, I'm the point guard, right?
Yeah,
I'm the point guard that doesn't shoot, but I'm good with the assists.
just lob up the ball, I'm gonna dunk it.
Yes, sir. You know how we do. We've been doing that since day one.
Honestly, see, y'all don't know about that when we used to be in the gym and actually,
Hey,
y'all don't know
man.
about that. Y'all don't know about
Maybe one day we'll bless y'all with the opportunity to witness greatness
that. Right.
in living flesh, but for now you can only fantasize about it.
Yeah, that's after we're super rich. We won't be touching a basketball court until then.
Because then we'll own the basketball court.
Yes.
Like Drake.
Yeah.
Have it in the house.
Yeah.
The compound.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But anyways, this has been a good topic already. I'm liking this conversation. Good fire today. But this is a concept. It's approximately 5 inches. And I got it from
feet, bro. Feet.
Shit, my bad. Approximately 5 feet. Listen, it's been a long day. It's been a long day. All right, that's all I can say. How is it that, like, a couple episodes ago, I was laughing my ass off and I couldn't be serious? Now it's you?
Nah, because that shit is crazy. That sounds crazy.
Listen. You can't change it. What's been said is what's been said.
Yeah, that's staying in there. It is what it is. Pause. But anyway.
That's crazy. Yo, you good, bro?
I'm sorry.
All right?
I'm sorry.
That's crazy, man.
Okay, back to the topic at hand. So approximately 5 feet. So 4 feet and 0.85.
8.5.
8.5 inches.
So, this is from Chris Williamson's 3-Minute Monday newsletter. Shout out to the Modern Wisdom podcast and Chris Williamson. If you don't follow him now on all platforms, and then subscribe to his 3MM because that is a wonderful newsletter. And it even instigates a lot of our conversations, which is why you subscribe to newsletters, so that you can learn things and it can invoke a thought process.
Right.
But anyways, I'm going to try to summarize this concept. I might butcher some components of it, but bear with me. So originally, the roads were built in Rome to match the width of two warhorse chariot, because it would make going through the road easier for obviously the war chariots, but also if you built chariots to the same specs, they could follow the ruts in the road. And if you don't know, chariots would leave a rut in the road because the roads weren't paved. They were generally just dirt. So if you're trying to ride on dirt that's not kind of rutted, you're going to go in and out of ruts. And so you're not going to go forward, and it's going to be very bumpy, which is uncomfortable. So they made the chariots that width, and that width basically progressed throughout time. So then the first roads that were officially paved in England were the width of 2 warhorse chariots from the Roman era. And then the first railroads that were built in the US were actually built to the same specs, 4 feet, 8.5 inches. Fast forward even further, and for the propulsion rockets of a spaceship built in Florida, they actually had to ship them through a railroad. And the railway itself passed through a tunnel that was not much bigger than 4 feet and 8.5 inches in diameter. Well, width, technically. And so, essentially, the rocket itself had to be limited to 4 feet and 8.5 inches, approximately. All to say that one of the most advanced technological feats of human existence was limited by the size of 2 Roman horses' asses. Now, Austin, break this apart for us so that we can understand why we give a fuck, because it's important to know when to give a fuck.
Okay, so a lot of y'all listening to this, y'all might have just heard what Jose said and said, "What the fuck are you guys talking
This
about?"
guy doesn't even know what the propulsion rockets on a jet are. Not even a jet, a spaceship.
You know? But basically, what we're saying is this is a perfect example of how limiting beliefs that you might have had prior to, you may not even realize that you had these beliefs, how these things can restrict your growth and your future success on this planet. So basically, one of the things that we're going through today as a people, I'm just going to air it out. College, I feel like, to be honest with you, college and schooling, I feel like limits people to certain, career paths, certain dollar amounts. It just limits all the things that you believe that you can do, because what do they tell you when you're in school? You got to go to school so you can get a good job. Now, if you go to school for a good job and you go to college with that mindset, most people nowadays don't have the $1 million, $1 billion careers from going to school. They probably never even thought that they could get there because these limiting beliefs that were pushed upon us growing up as kids of saying, you just got to go to school, you just got to get a good job. And the successful people are the ones that realized that that was a limiting belief and X'd that out of their whole life in general, grew from that, and then progressed even more and past those people who had those limiting beliefs. So that's my example why that I feel strongly about, that people don't even realize, or even they do realize that it's a limiting belief, but they let it limit them and they let it block their successes in life. So I definitely wanted to get out there because I feel some type of way about schooling and how they do that to us as human beings. It's like saying that you can only do this or you can only be so good to do this. But shit, you never know what you could do without those limiting beliefs.
True. Very true. And going on a tangent from that, now, okay, you're gonna have to forgive me. I don't know what book. It's either what?
He has about 85 million books over there that we reference.
I think it is, honestly, oh man. Which one is it? Which one is it? And you know what? I think I know who it is.
He's just gonna bring all 80 of them.
Okay. And I could be wrong. It's either Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art. It's either Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. But I really think that it is, shout out to my brother and business partner, Caleb Ajinomo-san, for this copy of Michel de Montaigne. And in particular, I think, and I'm not going to read this chapter because it's crazy, but I think it's his essay on educating children. I think so.
And you have to make sure that you educate children properly, because if you don't, that develops what, Jose? Childhood trauma, man.
But you're still going to have a degree of trauma. It just depends on how you take it. If I could find the actual point where he brings this up, I'm reading the entire thing. Because I think this is huge. And I think I'm not going to necessarily criticize the education system in today's day and age, because that's a conversation for closed doors.
Is it?
It could be open. But I think that's not on here. So it's actually with regards to Alexander the Great and why he was so great. And you're going to have to forgive me. Normally I find these things fast. But if you've ever read Michel de Montaigne, yeah. let me give you a, let me see if I can give you one sentence so you can be like, this guy writes like crazy. This is one sentence. This isn't the point, but I just want you to get the point. Our life, said Pythagoras, is like the vast throng assembled for the Olympic Games. Some use their bodies there to win fame for the contest. Others come to trade to make a profit. Still others, and they are by no means the worst, seek no other gain than to be spectators, seeing how everything is done and why. They watch how other men live so that they can judge and regulate their own lives. Basically what I'm saying is he writes like a fucking phenomenally. Okay, I'm not gonna find this. That's Michel de Montaigne for you. It's hard to
Well,
refer, but let me give you the example that I was giving you. And this is a good point that you brought up. So Alexander the Great, he wasn't taught math. He wasn't taught physics. He wasn't taught theory. He was taught essentially three components, and I can't recall all of them. But the main component was how to overcome self-doubt and how to overcome his ego, which is kind of funny because later on his ego was his demise. He became too egotistical and then he got demolished. But before and this is a suggestion or a reference that Michel de Montaigne made to a friend of his when she was asking him how should they educate their son. He said, find them a tutor and teach him how to overcome the basic necessities of human nature and the basic limitations before you teach him anything.
mm,
And so in other words, and this is an example to the school system, what Austin's saying is, and I would argue it's not just limiting beliefs, it's limiting behavior. And so if you shove down a child's throat math, physics, and science, sure, that's awesome, but this is a common issue on why people have existential crises and why they can never progress past a certain level, because they don't understand their ego. They don't understand the shadow, which if you don't know the shadow, reference Robert Greene. It's essentially like your innate desires from, we'll call it childhood trauma, that are surfacing. So you don't understand that you have a tendency for aggression, so you suppress it, but then you realize you're not fulfilled. But then you could actually understand, hey, I'm aggressive, like Alexander the Great, and then understand, hey, I can conquer, and then understand, hey, I'm my only limiting factor. If I can overcome this barrier, then I can dominate, which is why we call him Alexander the Great. And so the lesson and the moral of the story is, why bother learning theory when you yourself can't master the most basic of the human condition? And truth be told, there's never like a degree of mastery, but you at least learn how to navigate these complexities. And so the idea is, if you abide by the 4 foot and 8.5 inch principle, you're using tools that don't work to get you to the next level. And not only that, you're limiting yourself from going even further and from being even better, because those behaviors and those habits and those rituals and those thought processes are limiting your potential.
so while you were saying that, what that made me think of, most difficult things well, I wouldn't say most, all difficult things in life start with this.
Yeah.
In order for you to go anywhere or change the trajectory of your life at all, you're going to have to start here first before you get out in the world and start doing the physical shit. You have to make that mental switch in your mind flip. You have to change how you think about things, how you see things, how you react to things.
Yeah.
And again, it all comes from here. So, whenever there is a point in your life where you have to, or where you want to take it to the next level per se, you realize that you have to start here with your mind and realize that it's time to self-assess and say, what are the beliefs or the things that I was thinking that were good for my life? Are they really good for my life? Or how is it affecting my life currently? And is it, feasible or good for the matriculation of my life and the success, through my life. Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah, but you have to self-assess and really challenge those beliefs that you have. Not saying that you have to destroy them or you have to not believe these things, but you at least challenge them to see if they're conducive to good results in your life. And if they're not, then you have to change and adapt to whatever you want to get to, whatever situation that you want to put yourself in. But it starts with the mind, and it starts with having to take on these beliefs about yourself and about just the world in general. A big thing for me getting out of certain situations wasn't because I changed or people around me changed or how they talked to me changed or how, you know, just what serotonin levels were boosted because a lot of fun things were happening around me and shit like that. It wasn't because of that. It was because of I literally had to change the way I thought about shit to get out of certain situations and to grow. I had to change that. I had to make the mental effort every single day, almost every single fucking minute, because, as you all know, there's these intrusive thoughts that come into your mind.
Oh.
And if you don't know how to deal with them, they can get you right back to the point that you were before, you were trying to elevate yourself. So I had to make the mental effort to change those thoughts, or not even change those thoughts, really just view them passing by and say, hey, I'm not going to react to this. I'm not going to give those thoughts any attention or whatnot. I'm going to focus on what I need to focus on. And changing the way I thought about that just dramatically shifted the course of my life. So that all to say that in order to do anything that you want, you really, really have to challenge those beliefs and sometimes change them. And it is difficult. However, it is worth it. And a lot of these books that Jose has here, most of them don't necessarily talk about other people in a sense of you need to focus on what other people are doing and know you know, how to emulate or whatever. Most of them start with, you know, getting your mind right, getting yourself correct first and how you handle things, how you approach things, how you view the world, and changing things inner first as opposed to handling the external shit at first. Because to me, that would be backwards. You have to handle what's going on in here first, and then that'll change the whole outlook and perception of the world for you and allow you to reach different heights that you may not even thought that you could.
There's so many analogies I could make. So many people I could reference.
Hey, it's go time. Pick your favorite one.
The one I'm gonna pick is yours truly, Bedros Keuilian.
Okay.
And you know exactly the analogy that I'm gonna make.
We'll see.
Yeah. So what Austin just described is how Bedros categorizes being a fighter jet versus being a crop duster. And so the main difference, again, and I'll explain it to y'all until I'll beat the dead horse literally and metaphorically, because this is something that I think deserves always. I don't have my copy of Man Up, which is Bedros Keuilian's book. It is in Austin's possession and being absorbed as wonderful knowledge. But essentially, the difference between a fighter jet and a crop duster is a crop duster just shows up and does its job. It's not a high performance machine. It's not a high throughput machine, and it requires very minimal maintenance. But it exists, and it does its job, and it does it well. Right. It's just enough. A fighter jet is a high performance machine that requires a high level of maintenance. Mm-hmm. And it is always required to be on par with the task at hand. If not, at least the pilot needs to be, Top Gun Maverick style. Even if you have a subpar jet, it's a lot of times it's the pilot. But the point is, in life, if you want to be a fighter jet, you need to have all of your checklists in the green and checked off. So you need to have every component of that actual jet in the best shape possible. You need the right fuel. Every plate has to be properly secured because at any point in time, any maneuver and anything that's aggressive, the jet itself could blow up. Or you can lose control and then crash.
And then blow up.
And then blow up. But it's an inherent risk of operating at such a high level and with such a high demand. And so one of the main facets that Austin hit the nail on the head, because a lot of these books, yes, they do talk about finding a mentor and your network is your net worth, but they all revolve around the same initial principle, which is you need to fix yourself first. And I think Jordan Peterson has the best analogy. And I don't know which rule it is off the top of my head, but it's from the 12 Rules of Life. And he says, before you criticize somebody else's house, you need to put your house in order. Mm-hmm. And the concept is very clear. If your toilet smells like shit and you go to somebody else's house and it smells like shit and you feel obligated to tell them because you're an asshole, make sure your toilet doesn't smell like shit.
Right. Because
then you're just a hypocrite and you can't say anything. And so it's the same concept like, oh, you know, in that newsletter, Chris Williamson said, it makes him think of that the fact that the same tools that got you from 0 to 50 can't get you from 50 to 80 and 50 to 90 and 90 to 95. And that's what it means by 4 feet, 8.5 inches can be a limiting number, a limiting factor, a limiting belief, a limiting process that prevents you from flipping the switch, from going to a high level, from going from a crop duster to a fighter jet because you're not flexible. And A, you might not see it, or B, you're just so stubborn that you don't want to change. And so it's like, you're doomed. You're doomed.
You know what that just made me think of? And this is a kind of old reference, but in video games when we were younger, there would be, let's just say we were, let's just say it was Skyrim, right? If anybody doesn't know about Skyrim, it's like an open world type of game. I never played Skyrim. So there's certain times where you might be able to venture to certain places. However, the competition or the enemies there are a lot stronger. They're out of your depth. They have way better weapons than you. Their attacks do way more damage than yours do to them. It's just ridiculous. So there's certain times in your life where you may go somewhere and you might be out of your depth. Why? Because you haven't invested the time in yourself, developing yourself and gaining the materials that you need to be able to conquer that area, to go there and succeed. So you might have been able to take the materials that you had and go kill the day and, attack the day over here, working this many amount of hours on this particular job. However, when it comes to working exceptionally more hours on harder work, you might not be able to just skip from this to that without examining yourself, assessing what you need to do to get better, finding tools to help you improve yourself and, the knowledge that you have, and also working your way up to where you can work those difficult amount of hours as opposed to just jumping from 10 to 20. So in life, you have to prepare yourself to take on those harder areas, and you can't just do it with the same materials and with the same mindset and with the same work effort that you did when you were 20. And you can't just do that and take that same work ethic and apply it to some shit that you're trying to do when you're 25. It's a different zone. It's a different area. It's a different stage in life. It's different careers. It's different everything. So you can't just copy and paste. When it comes to business, especially, most of the times when you're trying to scale, you can't copy and paste. Life won't let you copy and paste. At that point, it's not going to work. So you're going to have to take the shit that you're trying to do, or take the shit that you're currently doing, invest time into getting that better, learning more about shit to where you're constantly progressing. Then you have the tools, you have the strength, you have the mindset to conquer that next level. And it all starts with this, once again, and changing your beliefs and how you have to approach it. And Jose just came in here with a book, so I would love to know.
But real quick, Skyrim, the enemies are devils or are they like demons?
No, it's not. It's just a lot of different creatures.
I'm thinking of Dark Souls.
Yeah,
Dark Souls,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
I didn't play either of them, but like I know the references. Right. But no, because I was gonna say it's the common saying that new levels bring new devils.
Right.
And you can't attack a new problem like Austin said. You can't go to another level. If you use a dungeon as an analogy, you can't go to a lower level of a dungeon and not expect to be challenged with something that forces you to break through.
And sometimes they won't even let you in that dungeon because you don't have the necessary level. You aren't at that level yet to even get in. So you have to work your way up with lower shit to get to a higher level to where you can access certain things. And that's the same thing with life. Certain times you won't be let in the door because you're not at that level yet. But then once you're that level, they'll let you in the door.
Well, and that's a great example we were talking about this the other day. I have a brother-in-law of a good friend of mine, and I was talking to him, and he's here from another country. He got his green card, thanks be to God. He's here, and he's working, and he said, "Hey, I want to do what you're doing. I want to start a business." And I looked at him because right now he works in manual labor, and I said, "Do you like to think?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "In a day in your job, being very honest, do you use your brain?" And he says, "No, not really. I just kind of, I know the task and I just repeat." I'm like, "Okay. Now you just want money. You're not thinking about the actual work." He's like, "No." And I was like, "Okay. If you don't like to think, I don't recommend you try to start a business." And the reason I say that is because Austin brought up a perfect example of sometimes you can't get to a certain level. Your access is restricted because you don't have the tools, the armor, or the level necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And where I'm going with this is I was telling him, look, man, if you don't want to deal with problems, if you don't want to deal with disgruntled customers, if you don't want to deal with logistical headaches and nightmares, if you don't want to deal with account balances, if you don't want to deal with taxes, because people oftentimes they think it's like getting a dog. People think, oh, it's a dog, it'll take care of itself. Hell no. You gotta walk that bad boy or girl. You gotta fucking feed them. You gotta make sure they're not sick. What happens if you leave them home for too long? What happens if they get the shits? What happens if they get heartworms? You gotta keep up their vaccine. So there's a whole lot of factors that you don't see. And so it's the same thing. Like a lot of times people are like, oh, I want this, but you don't understand the grass is not greener on the other side. Mm-hmm. And you might not have the potential for it. You might not have the people skills. You might not have the ability to socialize and vocalize what you need. You might not have the ability to delegate and much less manage. And so in a lot of times it's like, okay, if you understand that, that's the first step. The next step is actually learning those, because if you don't know what you don't know, then you're fucked. Because you're just an idiot revolving in a circle that's not really a circle. It's like a semicircle. So you're even more stupid. I was going to use a different word, but I'm being nice here, okay? So once you know, you're like, okay, I'm stupid in these categories. I need to get less stupid. I need to get educated in these categories. And then you work on them. And then now, hey, guess what? The level's unlocked. You can go to it. The door's open. You can walk through. You can dilly-dally and do the shit that you need to do and kill what you need to kill. But if you don't level up and you just sit there and you're like, oh, I should be allowed in because, I'm entitled to this. Yeah, fuck off. But anyways, I digress. Needless to say, he said he's prepared to take on problems, and so I said, by all means do it. Let me know what you need. And that's the main point of that conversation. Now on to the next one. Austin talked about using new tools and then implementing them when you need to. Mm-hmm. So this is actually a recent progression for us. A good friend, I would even say mentor, which is rare because I don't really take mentors of mine, recommended this book, Traction, by Gino Wickman. And I think we've mentioned a little bit about it. But basically, in this book, he discusses what's called the VTO, which is the Vision Traction Organizer. It looks like this, in case you're curious. And basically what it does is it forces you to think and operate within your business at all times with a long-term perspective. And so it's called the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And I've decided, but we need to discuss it, essentially to integrate the EOS into our ecosystem in business. And if you know anything about software development, agile methodologies, and documenting things with Jira, things of that sort, running Scrum, those are all concepts that kind of fall similar to EOS, but this is a more all-encompassing. This is on a business level, not on just like the development level, because agile is more project management, and this is business development, management, and growth. And so it's like, that's an example where I sat down, I looked at the numbers, I looked at the ledger, and I was like, okay, at least from what I know and what I understand, our trajectory is off from where we're headed. We need better ways to organize, structure, and direct our efforts. And so reading this book, I realized this is a perfect tool to use to get us from not 0 to 50, but 50 to 90. And that's like, okay, what we're doing in the past worked to a degree, but if we keep doing it, we're going to starve. So either we adapt or we die. And that's the example I will give you. Traction. If you can't grab the traction, you can't get to the next level. You can't climb that mountain. You can't get to the next hill. You're just going to die.
Traction. Get a grip on your business.
Not a paid sponsor yet.
Not yet. All right. Well, I think we have given you a good amount of information that you can do something with. If you can't do anything with that, then that's on you, bucko. Don't know what to tell you. But hey, any other closing thoughts before we wrap this sucker up?
That really went like all over the place. But hey, man, y'all are getting organic stuff. So hate it or love it, it is what it is.
Organic like Whole Foods.
Organic like Whole Foods. The AM Club podcast. Out.